You've read all the reports. You get it. AI is a strategic necessity and not just some fun experiment anymore.
All right.
But then comes that moment, the one where you have to actually put it to work inside a large, sometimes really slow organization.
Mhm.
And suddenly that strategic imperative just smacks into operational reality.
And that's it. That's the
Exactly
moment.
where it all falls apart.
Okay.
Okay, so let's really unpack this. The whole mission for this deep dive is to look at how strategic tools, these templates, can transform that moment of, well, operational panic into actual manageable steps.
Yes.
We are going way past the theory of, we need education or we need trust. We're diving into the how.
That's the key distinction,
Right.
We're looking at a very structured approach here. The kinds of resources we've seen, like on platforms, say, winningteamai.com, they're built for practical support.
Right.
I mean, everyone in the C-suite agrees on education and trust, but if you don't have the frameworks to actually do it day to day, they're just words on a slide. They're aspirations.
Just aspirations, not achievements.
Exactly. So we'll get into all the benefits these tools provide, the speed, the consistency, all of that. But we also really have to spend some time on the crucial skepticism.
Pushback.
Yeah, the pushback.
Yeah.
We need to address that potential con that comes up when you rely on standardized frameworks in a world that's all about custom innovation.
And that central conflict, structure versus creativity, that is a really fascinating part for me. How do organizations really embed AI into their culture? And why would something as rigid as a template actually speed that up? It just feels
Counterintuitive.
totally counterintuitive, but the data shows it works. So let's start with the most immediate benefit. These tools are just powerful accelerators. Instead of your project managers spending weeks, debating who needs to be on the email chain or what a risk matrix should look like, you're starting 3 steps into the marathon.
You're embedding best practices from day one.
Right across the board. But that immediately brings up that tension we need to solve, standardization versus flexibility. If a template gives you a common structure, a standard roadmap, how can it also be flexible enough for, say, a manufacturing plant and a customer service department? Their needs are wildly different.
That's because the standardization isn't about the outcome. It's about the process.
Okay.
Think of it less like a finish painting and more like highly standardized building codes.
I like that analogy.
Right. The code makes sure it's safe, it's compliant, it has structural integrity. It doesn't matter if you're building a little cottage or a skyscraper.
But what you build, the final structure, is completely up to you.
Exactly. The AI use case is entirely bespoke. These platforms just standardize the underlying framework, clarifying roles, making sure the documentation is consistent, providing those mandatory legal checklists.
So it reduces the chaos.
It reduces the confusion that almost always paralyzes a new tech rollout.
So give me an example.
Okay, so one organization, maybe they're focused on regulatory compliance. They might use the standardized templates for data governance, for audit trails.
Okay, makes sense.
But another company, they're just focused on getting their people to use the thing. So they use these modular communication templates to explain the AI's benefits to their frontline staff.
So they're both using the platform to standardize implementation.
But they're applying completely different adaptable modules based on their unique priorities.
That makes perfect sense. So you standardize let's be honest, the boring but necessary groundwork so you can focus all your energy on the actual unique application. Okay, now let's pivot to what so many studies call the single biggest blocker for AI adoption.
Trust.
Trust. And trust needs transparency, which means we have to tackle the infamous black box problem.
Absolutely. I mean, transparency is completely non-negotiable here. When employees feel like the AI is just this opaque box that spits out orders, they're going to resist it.
Of course.
And these strategic tools, they directly support making AI understandable, which is so much more complicated than just writing a memo about it.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because we have to go beyond just saying, oh, communication is key. How do these frameworks actually demystify a complex AI model for a manager who, lives and breathes Excel charts? What is the actual mechanism?
The mechanism is all about integrating explainable AI or XAI concepts into the reporting.
Okay.
A manager doesn't need to get the matrix math, but they do need to understand why the AI made the choice it did. what features were important.
And the sources we looked at talked about customizable reporting frameworks for this.
Yes, and these are not just, generic PowerPoints. They are structured dashboards that can template the outputs from really sophisticated tools, things like Lime or SHA values.
So wait, instead of showing the manager the raw algorithm, which would be meaningless,
Right.
the framework kind of digests those XAI outputs into a standard, easy-to-read report. So it might say, for instance, the AI denied this loan primarily because the applicant's debt-to-income ratio was 15% too high, and secondarily because their credit history was too short. And those two things were, 80% of the decision?
Exactly. The framework gives that manager a reliable script, a structure, visuals, so they can confidently explain a really complex decision in simple, quantifiable terms.
That is a massive reduction in opacity.
And that's what dials down the fear of the black docs. The AI becomes accountable, it's understandable, because the framework demands that evidence be presented in a standard way.
It changes the AI from being some kind of oracle into just a transparent colleague. That's a huge step. Let's shift our focus now to the long-term view. Sustainability, continuous improvement. We all know AI models drift, data changes, business needs evolve. If your adoption strategy just stops the day the system goes live, you've basically just built a technical debt machine.
You really have. And sustainability, it demands a commitment to ongoing modular training. You can't just run a huge 2-day boot camp every time there's a minor update.
Yeah.
You need to be more agile in how you educate people.
So what's the solution?
The beauty of the modular design that these platforms enable is that learning comes in these bite-sized, targeted chunks.
Okay.
A new compliance rule comes out, you push a mandatory 20-minute module on just that rule, not a whole new 8-hour course.
So companies can tailor and update things without starting from scratch every 6 months.
Exactly, without disrupting the workflow.
And hand in hand with learning is iteration, right? That's where I see a lot of organizations just grind to a halt.
Oh, absolutely.
In this environment, waiting months for user feedback to get collected and then manually implemented. That's fatal.
It is. You need rapid iteration cycles, and these structured platforms provide the foundation for that. They support immediate, systematic feedback, not just, a simple survey, but built-in analytics, structured suggestion portals.
So you can see what features people are skipping or where they're getting stuck.
Right. And that data, that telemetry, it gets fed immediately back to the development team through streamlined project management templates.
So they can test new features and roll out refinements based on what's actually happening in the real world.
Not just on theory.
I find the link back to employee engagement here really fascinating.
How so?
Well, when your staff actively participates through these feedback forms, and this is the crucial part, they see their input get used quickly.
They feel heard.
They stop being passive users, and they become invested stakeholders. They feel like they co-own the solution. And that is what creates a real culture of continuous improvement.
Which brings us right to that core tension we promised we'd tackle. The whole debate between standardization and creative freedom. Because while all of this sounds great, speed, trust, iteration, that reliance on frameworks, it does trigger a really critical counterpoint.
Yeah, the skeptics. They argue that if you lean too heavily on platform templates, you just get cookie-cutter solutions.
Right. Or that you stifle the kind of out-of-the-box thinking you need for a real competitive edge.
They're afraid they're trading actual innovation for just, efficiency.
And that's a valid perspective. It's totally valid, which is why the nuance here is so important. Experienced adopters, they'll tell you these tools are meant to be enablers, not replacements, for innovation.
So they don't restrict creativity.
They redirect it.
How?
By standardizing all that necessary but routine groundwork, the compliance checks, the communication plans, the stakeholder management. They're taking that cognitive load off your most skilled people.
So your engineers, your data scientists.
Your business strategist. It frees them up to focus their creative energy on the unique, high-value problem the AI is actually there to solve. And that's where the competitive edge really is.
So if the template handles, say, the 80% of administrative and structural work, the documentation, legal sign-offs, all that, then the organization can pour 100% of its real ingenuity into the other 20%, the proprietary algorithm, the unique data strategy.
The new business model the AI makes possible. The structure actually provides a stable platform for high-risk, high-reward innovation.
It's a foundation, not a cage.
Exactly. And it also helps the tech teams and the end users get on the same page.
By giving them a shared language.
A shared framework. Templated roadmaps mean everyone's using the same language, the same metrics. It aligns expectations from the start, and it just reduces so much of that friction you normally get.
Sure.
And if you connect this all back to the bigger picture, it's about responding to market pressure with speed,
Mhm.
with resilience.
Right.
These resources act as critical accelerators during those key moments, like an initial rollout or a big scale-up effort, where the cost of being inconsistent or slow is just massive.
You can't afford to spend months agonizing over internal planning when your competitors are already deploying.
You just can't.
And having those templates ready to go, it cuts that planning time down while making sure you're still compliant, you're still consistent. That speed is a direct market advantage. And the tangible results, that's what proves this approach works. This isn't just theory.
No.
The sources we looked at, they pointed to real-world case studies. Healthcare providers using these frameworks to make sure teams are trained properly on AI diagnostics. And the result, faster, better patient outcomes.
And we saw it with financial institutions, too. Automating complex risk assessments reliably, because their implementation followed a consistent, auditable strategy from day one.
So what's the bottom line here? What does this all mean?
Well, the dividends you get from this kind of deliberate, structured planning are really clear. You get faster adoption cycles, you build stronger trust because of that enforced transparency, and you guarantee ongoing learning. Ultimately, you're turning AI from a risky one-off investment into a resilient, enduring asset for the whole organization.
That's a powerful way to put it. Adopting AI isn't just about buying the best tech, it's about embedding that tech deep into your organization's fabric.
Supported by practical resources that can handle the sheer complexity of change management and compliance. And we've seen how these frameworks just reinforce those three pillars you need for it to stick. Education through modular training, trust through that radical transparency with XAI, and continuous improvement through those rapid feedback loops.
So we'd encourage you, listening, to really reflect on how a proven framework can turn these huge, daunting challenges into manageable opportunities, especially by freeing up your best people from all that routine work.
And considering that whole standardization debate we discussed, ask yourself this. Where in your organization could a strategic framework maximize consistency and compliance without sacrificing that human ingenuity that drives real innovation? Where can structure actually enable freedom? It raises an important question.